I'm here with Mr. Stephenem Clarkem. He's the Director for Liaison Offices at European Parliament since 2018. Mm-hmm. So you were also the co-creator of the previous and the upcoming campaign for the European Parliament elections. And you are here. Welcome to Political and Pro Mladé interview. So
it's great to be here.
Thank you. We'll start about your job. What is it about and why is it important for European Parliament?
Well, my current job is I'm the director responsible for these offices that the European Parliament has in every member state, so in every capital city. And in some of the larger member states, we have another one in a second city. And these are communication offices, so they're part of our Directorate General for Communication. And their job is to, get the message out to people locally about what the European Parliament is doing, telling people what it is, explaining what it is, what it does, and trying to implement our campaigns, such as the campaign that we have on the elections. Why is that so important? Because it's vital that we don't just get stuck in a Brussels mindset, that we are aware of what's happening around Europe, that we understand how people think, that we speak their language, and we do so literally and metaphorically. So, we're talking in a way that people understand and they appreciate and actually gets through to them. So there's this kind of, we call it decentralization or going local, and that's what we try to do through these offices. And it's a way we keep our feet on the ground when it comes to communicating with real people in the real world.
So if you had only one sentence, what is European Parliament about?
The European Parliament represents democracy in the EU system. So we want the EU to be democratic, and our democracies around Europe are built around the idea of parliaments and a representative democracy. And the European Parliament is how we do that in Europe.
Okay, thank you.
That wasn't one sentence, I know, but
yeah, but it's okay.
They were short.
Yeah. So next year, in the event of the Day of Europe, there will be European Parliament elections. What are your expectations of the voter turnout throughout Europe and the regions of Europe? Will there be differences between Western, Eastern and Central Europe?
I suppose so. If you don't mind me, I'm going to a little correction first. We have Europe Day. That's a big event next year. It's on the 9th of May. Okay. The election's on the 9th of June, so it's actually a month later. Okay. We hope that Europe Day is going to be part of the big build-up to the elections. Because it's a great opportunity to wake people up about the European elections coming and why it's important to vote and so on. Turnout. So you probably know that in the last elections, turnout went up a lot by historical standards. Over the years, we'd seen it decline slowly and then stagnate in the sort of low 40s. But then suddenly last time it went up over 50% again. We have reasons to believe that it could go up again. One reason is the polling. We do polling, and before the last elections, when asked the question, if you were to vote, if the elections were next week, would you vote? 56% said yes, they would. We asked the same question this year, and 67% said yes. So although we can't necessarily trust that figure as an indicator of what really happens ultimately, we can maybe identify a trend. And I think the big increase in that number could point to an increase in turnout overall in Europe next time round. And there are many reasons, I think, why that is plausible, why we could see that happen. I think mainly because, as I've been saying today, the news is all European. With even people who don't like the European Union, they talk about Europe all the time. So, it's there in people's minds, and they might make the connection. Well, perhaps I should be thinking about this, get involved. Will it be different in different parts of Europe? I mean, the answer is yes, because it always is. And sometimes there are very concrete reasons for that. There are countries where it's compulsory to vote. So Belgians, Luxembourgers, for example, they go out and vote because they have to. They get fined if they don't. So they typically have sort of 80-90% turnout. There are other countries where they just have a very strong tradition of voting, and then you see very high levels there. And then there's probably most of Europe where it's perceived as a duty. It's perceived as something which is worth doing and interesting to do. So you'll get turnout. Now we've seen in some parts of Central and Eastern Europe lower rates of turnout. It's almost like become a tradition. I think I don't think that will be overcome in a single go. I don't think there's going to be a huge leap. And suddenly we're going to be, the Czechs will be voting like the Maltese vote, 90% turnout or something. But, we're seeing progression, and we're seeing that here too people understand the importance of Europe. I think migration is a thing that's very much on people's minds. It's a European issue. It might be something that mobilises people and gets them to turn out. So, I think overall turnout will go up, and I'm optimistic that here too things will improve.
Yeah, because in Czech Republic the voter turnout is really low. Only Slovakia is worse. And do you think there's a reason for that, or yeah?
I don't know. I probably need to be a sociologist to answer that question, or be an expert in Slovakia and in Czech Republic, which I'm afraid I'm not. But what is clear that many of the countries which see very low turnout are countries that have, they have a past of being part of the Soviet bloc. People maybe didn't acquire a voting habit in the same way early in their lives. Maybe they had other priorities when things changed. I don't know. It could be to do with that history. Another country which has low turnout typically is Croatia, which also has a sort of a difficult recent history. They had a war there as well. So whether or not all that leads to this, I don't know. What we did see, for example, in Slovakia is in the national election they just had, they had a pretty high turnout, high by their own standards. So maybe there is, who knows? Maybe there's kind of a politicization, or people are getting more political in their attitudes. Who knows?
Do you think one of the factors is that European Union structure and functioning is complicated for people to comprehend?
It may be. Certainly, why does the European Parliament have such a large communications operation? It's because it's complicated. And, when you're looking at your own parliament, any country, when you see it on the TV, you know the characters, right? You know who the guy standing up is the Prime Minister. You can maybe understand what they say because they're speaking your language. You maybe get their accents and you say, oh, this guy's from the West or the East or wherever it might be. So you decode it very, very easily. This is not true of the European Parliament. We need to help people understand it and access it. So there is a sense of distance that's created by that difficulty itself. The complexity is, there's a lot of complexity, of course, because this is a system which is unprecedented in the world. It's a sharing of sovereignty, which is obviously a very complicated thing to do. And of course, a lot of compromises and deals have had to be made to get people to agree on a system that then works. So it is complicated. It needs to be complicated, but fundamentally, it really shouldn't be that complicated. We have an executive, as we do in the government in the country. We have the commission. We have a parliament. Everyone has a parliament. We have a parliament, and then we have a council. This is where it gets complicated. Where the ministers sit together in the council. That's something which people aren't so familiar with, and then there are checks and balances within the system. So it's complicated, but I think it's part of our job to try and make it simpler. This is the European Union, it's working for you, you need to decide how it works, you need to decide the direction it takes, and you do that by voting in the elections.
Yeah, exactly. And so how does European Parliament or you work towards raising awareness about how European Union functions? What are, for example, some accounts on Instagram or other social media sites that you can just follow?
Well, you can follow all kinds of social media accounts belonging to the European Parliament itself, and they will give you a lot of very good and reliable information. You can go look at the website. The problem is not, in my view, the quality and the quantity of information that we provide. The problem is getting people to see that information, because typically it's people who are interested who go and look, and the problem is not those people. The problem is people who are not that bothered, they've got other things to do in their lives. They're not going to spend all their time researching the European Union. So what do? We need to find ways of talking to them. And that's what a communication campaign is all about. That's what we're doing on the elections is we're trying to get out of the metropolis, we're trying to get out of our usual mode of explaining legislation and talk about identity, values, things that matter to us, why it's important to vote in elections. And, we try not only to be in capital cities, but like somewhere like this, to make a change. All of these things, they're small, they're difficult. We haven't got huge, endless resources to do it, but we try and do it. And engaging people emotionally is really important. I don't think, if I'm honest, many people really understand their own national systems. I mean, even I look at the UK and I think, well, the House of Lords, what exactly do they do? And how do their powers work? And how do they interact with the House of Commons? It's mind-boggling. I was asking someone this week about that, and I realised, this is my own country, my own system. There's all kinds of detail I don't understand. You don't need to. You need to understand you live in a democracy. There's an executive, and there's someone whose job it is to control the executive and generate the executive somehow. That's true in Europe too.
Yeah. So, except for voting, how can people actively help to raise the voter turnout in Czech Republic?
Well, I think our campaign is built on the idea that we mobilise people. So it's not only people like me wandering around, trying to tell people all about the European Parliament and the European elections. It's also about other people saying, yes, I'm interested, I want to get involved, I'm prepared to go and talk to people I know about this. And that's what we hope to achieve through this community we have called Together.eu, which is a place we say to people, join us, show your support, say you're interested. You can even go further, you can volunteer, and we will actually get in touch with you, and we can think about how we can work together by organising events, by putting things on social media, by getting a movement going. And, people like me, I don't speak Czech, I don't speak Slovak, for a start, right? And then, I'm no longer 25. I don't live here, I've not grown up here. You have. So when you have a credibility that I don't have, and other people like me don't have. So if you're talking to your friends, and you could say, well, it does matter. Maybe, what does it take? Just go and vote. You can be far more persuasive. So what I would say to people who have that interest, give it a go. I mean, it's just, if you can find 5 people who wouldn't have voted, who do it because of you, then you've made a difference. And you've improved European democracy, and perhaps then you get a result. This is not quite the result that it would have been without you. And maybe it's a result you like better. And after that, I would say, don't forget that it doesn't stop there. That, once these people are elected, they need to be held to account. They're politicians. They're politicians in a democracy. That means they can't just then spend the next 5 years deciding everything without any input from you or from the other people who voted for them or people who didn't vote for them. So, stay in touch, go to events, send them emails, hassle them on their social media accounts or whatever it might be that you need to do. So democratic engagement is more than just a five-yearly vote. See what I mean?
Thank you. I think this wraps it up perfectly. So thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you. Thank you very much.